Krishnan Srinivasan is a former ambassador and foreign secretary who writes novels besides books and commentaries on international affairs. He is a columnist for The Hindu and the Deccan Herald. Monabi Mitra is a writer, a professor of English literature, and a heritage enthusiast. Her acquaintance with the world of the police and her varied interactions with different strata of policemen helped her rediscover crime literature. Her three-novel series was published by Penguin Random House, and in 2019 she published Under the Banyan Tree, The Forgotten Story of Barrackpore Park, in which she used archival material to chronicle the history of the Viceroy's weekend retreat at Barrackpore. I welcome both of you to the stage. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to formally release the book in the sense you can hold it up so everyone can see? This is the book. And now, please proceed to talk about the book, read, have a conversation. Thank you.
So, it is I wouldn't say it's an honor. I think it's really more of a privilege to be here with Mr. Krishnan Srinivasan at the launch of this book. And his contribution in the to the world of statecraft and realpolitik is well known. And he's also a writer on international affairs. But I'm not sure whether many of us know that he's a prolific writer of crime fiction also. And I think this is your fifth or sixth novel, if I'm not mistaken. And when I got hold of this book, I dived into it. And it was, I didn't just read it, it was more of a breathless leap. It was so exciting because the worlds of regular policing and the world of the private investigator. So detective novels and the police detective and private investigation coalesce so beautifully. And so I would really like to begin by asking Mr. Srinivasan to talk a little bit about this book and how he got this wonderful idea.
Well, thank you very much. Firstly, thank you to the Valley of Words and Mr. Sanjeev Chopra. Most grateful to you for letting us have this event in your festival. And thank you, Monabi, for you're also a writer of several detective stories, so these words coming from you are very greatly appreciated. I'd like to say that, this session could be as far different from the previous session as it's possible, because I think the previous session had a book of 1,000 pages, perhaps. This one has just 300, and and apart from that stratospheric intellectual level of the last session, we're now coming right down to earth with policing and Kolkata, because my book really is right here. And if any of you read it, you'll find all the locations are known to you. Now, how did I come across this? Well, Monabi was kind enough to mention that I've written quite a few of these novels. Now, all of them have one character who is an African diplomat from Somalia. Now, Somalia is a country which has been destroyed completely. So my hero, so to say, or anti-hero, who's a Somali ambassador, has no country. And he's worried that his passport will expire and he won't get another passport because there's no one to issue passports. He's stuck in Calcutta and he wants desperately to go home, which is understandable. Now, he meets, almost by chance, in a Kolkata hotel, a young lady who has been invalided from the Kolkata police. And while Monabi has been very kind in her description of my novel, I'm sure there are plenty of wrong things I've said about the Kolkata police, but never mind that. She's been invalided out because in an action against some criminals, in the only shot that was fired, she got hit in the left arm and it was amputated. So she has a bionic or artificial left arm. And she is a dashing young woman who rides a Harley motorcycle. She has which she bought from the police in an auction. She has a Glock pistol, which she bought from the police in an auction, and the Kolkata police always help her. Whenever she gets stuck, she turns to the Kolkata police for help, and they're always very helpful to her previous colleague. And in this story, he narrates right through the book. She is the only narrator. And when she comes to see the Somali ambassador from time to time, he helps her with certain deductive processes to find solutions to the problems that she has. Now, why did I have my Somali ambassador? Well, he's in all my books. I met him first when I was in my first ambassadorial posting in Africa. There was such a man, same name, same country, and I've lost touch with him, but he continues to live in my books. And as far as the private eye is concerned, that is the private detective, she is, to my mind, she gives dignity to a very sordid profession. If you've got a problem, you will go to the police, not to a private detective, because as you know from whatever experience you have, and the latest one is this Aryan Khan in Bombay, it's a very sleazy private detective who appears on the scene, Mr. Gosavi, and that is the reputation of private detectives in India. I wanted to create something completely different, so I have a woman in this profession, and there are very few women, I think, in that profession in India, and I wanted to create a really dashing, courageous, brave, intelligent young woman, and I wanted to give the private detective profession a bit of dignity.
Right. And Koel Deb, if I am not mistaken, she's your private detective. She's a very compelling personality. And one of the things which struck me as I read the book, which I'm going to ask you about now, the settings are very interesting. There's one story which is set in a studio in Calcutta, which I imagine is one of the Tollywood studios. There's another one in Cooch Behar. There's a third in Purulia. So could you talk a bit about how you made it so inclusive? I mean, it's not just Koel Deb and Michael Marco working in Calcutta, but Koel frequently moving out, and these are places really where the police, which no one has documented really. I mean, crime in Cooch Behar, crime in Purulia, that is reality. That's what really happens. But this is the first time when I've actually been lifted out of the cozy confines of private detective working in Calcutta, and she's so real. I mean, she goes to Cooch Behar, she goes to Purulia, she's there in the jungles of Purulia. I love that story. So could you tell us a little bit more about your use of setting?
Yes, I'd like to firstly say that this woman who I take as a private detective, Koel Dev, who was mentioned by Monabi, she came first in my book. She comes first in the Indian Civil Service exam, but she chooses to join the police, and she chooses to join the police because, as she says, she wanted to do something for Indian women who are the most persecuted section of Indian society. So this is something I feel very strongly about. Now, I'm a Bengali son-in-law, as they say, and I am very fond of the city. I'd rather live here than anywhere else. I'm greatly enraptured by the culture of Kolkata and the culture of Bengal, the diversity and the all-embracing character of it. And I would like to say also that I think that my depiction of various locales, which Monabi has mentioned, also I think it gives a reflection of my interest in Bengal as a state, the only state which has both the sea and the high mountains of the Himalaya. So it is really my affection for Kolkata and Bengal which I reflect in this book.
Right. And the relationship between Marco and Koel Deb is also very interesting because I am a great lover of detective novels, as I'm sure you are, since we both write them. And I was reminded of Tommy and Tuppence, really, or maybe the mysterious Mr. Quinn series by Agatha Christie. So, you know, where Marco kind of, he doesn't do the actual legwork, but he's always there to help solve. So would you say that Golden Age detective novels or, you know, English detective fiction influenced you in any way in writing this?
Well, I suppose, you know, the a detective couple, so to say, is a very hallowed tradition in English literature. You always have two people for whatever reason, you know. It's Holmes and Watson, and so I suppose this goes back to Adam and Eve. From there, you really have two people who have to work together. Now, yes, I think that I like the idea of this sedentary. This is kind of what Professor Das calls counterfactual. You know, it's the woman who does all the legwork in my novel. She's the one who goes out and she goes to Purulia, she goes to Cooch Behar and other places. The man is sedentary. He stays put in his hotel. So it's kind of complete role reversal. She's the activist, he's the pacifist. But then, you know, there is an interplay between the two. And I think one of the earlier sessions, there was a good deal of talk about love. This is actually a love story, which Monabi has put her finger on. It's a love story that develops between a 70-year-old man and a 35-year-old woman, an African and an Indian, a Bengali lady. And it starts with chance meeting, respect, affection, then love. And it's love, of course, of an ethereal kind. It's not of a physical kind. But right at the end, when my hero wants desperately to go back home, at the end, Koel Dev, the lady, says, "Can I come with you?" This is not something sexual, you understand. It's something almost paternal and daughter-like.
Yes, and as writers of detective fiction, I mean, I'm often asked this question. We are writers of what is called popular fiction, as against serious fiction, you know. Though I disagree with that. I feel that detective fiction and crime novels deal no less with very serious aspects of life as so-called serious fiction does. It's just that our narrative style, which is powered by plot, is quicker. We don't describe a blade of grass through 3 pages, but yes, we do make known the beauties of blades of grass and the need to keep them alive. So I was struck by the fact that there's an inherent morality in each of the stories. Good prevails, justice is done, and so it's not just a puzzle which is solved by this wonderful partnership between Marco and Koel Dev. It's also the sense of, you know, the pulses of life beating again, and good is restored, and that we live in a moral world, not an immoral world, but we live in a moral world. So would you like to you know, talk a bit?
I think that's a very astute remark, and I thank you for it. I think that is the intention, and I think you'll remember, Monabi, that in one or two, actually more than one of those stories, the criminal element, that is the malefactor, is known. He has been traced, he or she has been traced, and I think he or she is allowed to go because the offense or the crime was done in the best of intentions. So my hero, that is Michael Marco, the African, he asks the lady, the private detective, is this man's justice or is it God's justice? And if it's God's justice, let God look after it, let these people go. And then they don't pursue it anymore. Right. So I think you're absolutely right. There is a moral aspect to my novel. I don't want to, to create hyperbole about it. I mean, after all, these are detective stories. But even so, there is a strong thread of ethics in it.
Yes. Would you like to read a little bit, a small excerpt?
Small excerpt?
Yes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes?
And can And after that, may I ask you to hold the book up once more? They
Okay.
want some more photographs to
Oh,
be taken.
right.
Well, it'll be very short, but well, as I said, it's the private detective does the narration all the way through, and she is here at a cocktail party given by Tollywood, and she says it was there by the poolside while I was circulating aimlessly looking around for someone to talk to that I was accosted by Vinod Kashyap, dressed in a Western-style dinner jacket, which he sported incongruously with an open-neck dress shirt and brown shoes. Coel Dave, he proclaimed, scooping up a couple of whiskies from a circulating tray and handing me one. That wouldn't be private eye, Coel Dave. I admitted that it was so. Not very private if you speak so loudly. He laughed as if it was the best joke he had ever heard, and he clamped my right arm with his hand. Kashyap was a stocky man becoming bald, and his face and head were shiny with sweat. I read in the newspapers that you are the best in the business, Miss Dev. And I, the movie producer, Vinod Kashyap, am the best in my business. If we could get together, it could be that you will save my life. Though I wonder sometimes whether it's worth the trouble. Vinod Kashyap was accordingly proving himself to be the typical Bollywood tycoon, alternately boasting and self-deprecating, which made me thankful that I worked out of Kolkata and not in the maximum city. Kashyap steered me out of the reception and he came straight to the point. Someone is going to kill my wife, he confided. If she gets killed, there goes my film on Siraj-ud-Dawla, Nawab of Murshidabad. And if that happens, the movie crowd wouldn't give me the job of sweeping out the latrines. Why do you assume someone is going to kill your wife, Mr. Kashyap? I asked him politely, the way you try to mollify an insistent drunk. Because I hired the guy to do it, he said indignantly. On hearing that, I paid him greater attention.
Yes, and there's a lot of humor in these stories, so I do hope that everyone gets their copy. It's not just a puzzle, it's rich humor and it's very deep character analysis. So let's hold up our...
Thank you very much once again. I have to say that was a tantalizing glimpse into the book. And like all good detective novels, it makes one immediately want to
Because you never see.
start reading it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. There is also a book launch video that is to be played, which we'll do now. All